Okay.
Oh, the address. Are we in this picture?
No.
Oh.
Welcome, everybody. We're just going to give the rest of our community a minute or two, and then we will get started. All right, it doesn't look like if anybody comes in the waiting room, I'll let them in. So we're going to start. My name is Jessica Kutz. I am the Director of Student Services at Newton High School. We are so thrilled to have our panelists here tonight to kind of share some insight about their universities, a little bit about what their admissions process might look like, differences in what they offer in financial aid, and just a chance to highlight their school. The reason that these schools are here tonight is our class of 2022. They were our top 10 schools that were applied to. So that's why they're here with us tonight. We are very excited to have them. I'm going to introduce all of our panelists, let you know what school they are from, and also going to allow them a chance to do introductions of their school once we've introduced all the panelists. So I'm going to start with the box that I see closest to me, and that's Ray Morris. He's representing SUNY Oswego tonight. We have Andrew Austin, who is actually a Newton High School alumni, class of 2018, representing James Madison University tonight. Alyssa, I'm going to try really hard, Filiano from Rutgers University. Kevin Fay from the College of New Jersey. Stacy Rosenbaum, I'm not going to try the last one, but from Penn State here tonight. And we are very, very thankful to have all of you with us tonight. I'm actually going to allow Stacy to start off first, talking a little bit about Penn State and giving us a little introduction to it. So Stacy, if you wouldn't mind starting us off with a little bit about Penn State.
Sure. Thank you for having us. Always happy to be here with Newton. My name is Stacy Kowalczyk. I'm from Penn State University. Thrilled to be here tonight. Penn State University is the State University of Pennsylvania. We are a large major research institution. We are a public institution. We are the land grant institution of the state of Pennsylvania. We're a large university, so as you'll hear from different schools today, you might think of small, medium, large schools. We're sort of a supersized school in that we have a total enrollment of about 95,000 students. Now, that's a large number, but those 95,000 students are spread out at 20 campuses all over the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. You're probably most familiar with our University Park campus, which is the largest campus right in the center of the state of Pennsylvania. We have about 44,000 students at that campus. And then our other students study at campuses all over the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which vary in size from just a few hundred students up to a few thousand students. And then we have that large campus, University Park, in the middle of the state. So Penn State University has over 275 academic programs for you to be involved in. We have 13 academic colleges, which you could study. You can also start out as an undecided student or our Division of Undergraduate Studies. We are a Big Ten Division I athletic school. We have 31 Division I varsity athletic sports. We have 1,200 clubs and organizations for you to be involved in. We are also really proud to say we are home to the world's largest student-run philanthropy. It culminated for us actually last weekend. Penn State students raised over $15 million working together to help fight pediatric cancer. So this is a big part of the Penn State student experience. Our students, of course, take part in student activities. We do offer study abroad, undergraduate research, and then what I I will close by just saying we are very proud to say that we are home to the world's largest alumni association, which I am, of course, a proud member of as well. But happy to be here tonight and to answer any questions that you have about the college search process.
Thank you so much, Stacy. Kevin from the College of New Jersey, I'm going to let you go next.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for spending some of your Thursday night with us. My name is Kevin Fay. I'm one of the assistant directors for undergraduate admissions at TCNJ. I'm also an alum of the institution, and I've been working in admissions at TCNJ now for just over 20 years. And in that time, my feelings about the institution haven't really changed all that much. And I do fundamentally believe that TCNJ, which is kind of on paper, a comprehensive liberal arts institution, it's a New Jersey State public institution housed in Mercer County in Ewing Township, right in between Princeton and Trenton. We are a medium-sized institution with about 7,000 undergraduate students, and we are a residential institution, meaning the vast majority of those 7,000 students do reside on campus. We don't require on-campus housing, but we do guarantee it for at least the first 2 years of study. And we're able to accommodate the vast majority of juniors and seniors who do want to stay on campus above and beyond that. In terms of really points of pride for us as an institution, I think it's really centers for us on outcomes, because we are primarily focused on the undergraduate student experience at TCNJ. We offer no doctorate programs, intentionally a limited number of master's degree programs, and we really pride ourselves on retaining between 90 and 95% of our first year students to their second year, and graduating just over 75% of our students in 4 years, which is well above the national average. So not that we're trying to kick our students out, but we make it our business to get you in and out on time and enter the workforce, compete for grad seats in a graduate program. We really are focused on supporting and retaining and ensuring the success of our undergraduate student population. And thanks again for joining us tonight.
Perfect. Alyssa from Rutgers University, would you like to go next?
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Alyssa, and I'm from Rutgers University. I feel like everything I'm about to say is what Penn State had already said, except put New Jersey in there. So we are the State University of New Jersey. We have over 35,000 undergraduate students on our campus in New Brunswick, and about a little over 60,000 students. I'm from our campus in New Brunswick, but we also have 2 smaller campuses in the state of New Jersey, in the city of Newark, which is very close to New York City, and then also Camden as well, which is just a hop away from Philadelphia. We have 7 first-year academic schools available for our first-year students. These will be what you're seeing on the application if you've already checked it out. And we have over 120 different majors for students to choose from within those schools. We also have over 750 different different clubs and activities for students to get involved in on campus. We have a large majority of our students who do live on our campus, sprawling across 5 different little neighborhoods on our campus in New Brunswick. The way our students get around is from our university bus system, which is free for students. And we also have a train station located right on our campus in New Brunswick. So students are able to access a lot of the major cities on the East Coast, like New York City and Philadelphia, even Washington, D.C. And what this means for our students is it becomes an extension of the classroom. So a lot of times students will find internship and co-op opportunities in these areas. Hop right on the train. You're in New York City in about 45 minutes, go to your internship, and then come right back to campus. Very easy. There's also a direct route to the Newark Liberty International Airport. So for our international students, which I know we're all from, well, this is a New Jersey school. I'm also from New Jersey. Rutgers is kind of in our backyard, but we are the most diverse school within the Big Ten Conference. So we have students coming to us from over 113 different countries, and having that train station and accessibility from our campus is really important. But you don't have to leave New Brunswick in order to find different opportunities. New Brunswick is actually called the hub city in New Jersey because it's a major economic driver for the state of New Jersey. We have 2 in-state hospitals the world headquarters for Johnson & Johnson, and also Bristol Myers Squibb. So there's a ton of opportunities right in and around campus as well, so you don't have to leave. But that's a little bit about Rutgers and New Brunswick, and I'll pass it off to the next university.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. I'm going to invite Andrew to talk to us a little bit about James Madison University.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Austin. I am the recruiter for New Jersey, like everyone else is at their respected institutions, for JMU. And I'm a proud Newton High School alum. Like Jessica said, I graduated 4 years ago, so not too far long ago. But JMU is a fantastic public state university in Virginia. We hold about 20,000 undergraduate students, so we're relatively large. But then we also have 2,000 graduate students. So a total of 22,000 students are on our campus at any given time. We do guarantee housing for the freshman class that come out of state specifically, with about 40% of the sophomore class coming back to stay on campus. But traditionally by your junior, senior year, you're off campus in one of the off-campus housing options that we have that you can live in that are upwards of like 10 minutes away from campus. But you are very well ingratiated because we have a shuttle system that'll take you to campus, take you to shopping centers, and get you around like you need to do. But also after your freshman year, you are allowed to have a car on campus. We do have a wealth of majors and minors that you can get involved in, as well as pre-professional programs if you're interested in going into something like medicine or athletic training. For some examples, you can get involved with those pre-professional programs to kind of fast track you to a master's program or a PhD program. And then all of our majors are broken down into 8 colleges, including our honors college. So, different majors are separated by that. About 1,200 students a year will go abroad, so that's fantastic. And you, as soon as you're a freshman, have the opportunity to do research and an internship at JMU as well. So you, as a student, can have a lot of stuff under your belt by the time you graduate in 4 years, which we do graduate over 80% every 4 years. So we are above the national average there. And we also have a 90% freshman retention rate going into their sophomore year, which is also above the national average. And then also we have over 450 clubs that you can get involved in. So you never feel like you have to go home. Personally, I know, especially because I think out of all of us, I'm the furthest away. But I know that it might be a little bit daunting to go far away from home, but you will always find that you can keep yourself busy at JMU. It's definitely a great experience. And I'll let the next person talk.
Thanks, Andrew. I'd like to invite Ray from SUNY Oswego to give us a little bit about his school.
Okay, well, thanks, folks. Although I have our beautiful campus in the background there, right on Lake Ontario in upstate New York, I'm actually only across town because I do live in Newton. And my connection is that my son graduated from Newton High School in 2013. He was a student athlete at the State University of New York at Oswego on that campus, stayed for his master's. He was a technology education major. I like to talk with him and about that major because there are few and far between schools that offer technology education. I know we have in Newton our robotics program and those kinds of things, and he was into all that. And if you ever thought about teaching, SUNY Oswego is the place to be for that. So we're about 4 hours away from Newton, again, right on the shoreline of Lake Ontario. The city of Oswego is Newton-ish, but bigger. There is that road outside of town with all the big box stores and things like that. The actual downtown of Oswego is that typical college town, the nice restaurants, the cafes, those kinds of things. But because we are right on the lake shore, it's drop dead gorgeous. The sunsets and so forth are usually in all of our literature because they are beautiful. I would emphasize some of our majors because they're kind of unique. I mentioned technology education. If I start at the bottom, zoology is another one. So animal science, anybody that might be interested in vet school or in any way, shape, or form working with animals. We also have a wonderful program for film, for broadcasting, for sports broadcasting, those kinds of programs. And we're building a brand new building for a brand new school of communication, media, and the arts. Another one of our unique majors would be meteorology. If you're interested, if you watch the weather, and everybody does, hoping for a snow day, at least during this time of the year, that is one of our premier programs as well. We have weather studios, weather stations on campus, so you'll get the whole package. Living on the lake, there is occasional weather there. I know Syracuse is often claiming the top spot. We're about 45 minutes northwest of Syracuse. Syracuse often claims the top spot for the amount of snow. So we do get occasional flurries in Oswego. There is a lot of weather. So for meteorology folks, it's really a good place. We have about 6,000 full-time students on campus. We have 13 different residence halls, about 4,500 or so students live on campus. You're required to live on campus for your first 2 years. We'll have plenty of room for you for all 4 years. Another hit with us is that freshmen can bring cars to campus. And in your first year, you can have that car unless you're my son, then you must be a junior. But that's always a topic that people ask about. Another thing I would mention is that we will be test optional for current juniors. And I can ramble on, but I think I won't. I'm going to pass it back to Jess.
Thank you so much. Glad that we were able to kind of hear a little bit more about all the opportunities that are available just from this panel alone. Right now, I have a couple topics, areas, so I'll leave it up to the panelists to kind of jump in. The first one's an easy one, so we'll start off with something easy. Application timeline, because we do have juniors on this call and they're thinking about when they're going to apply. So maybe what that looks like if you have an early decision or an early action, regular decision timeline. I think sharing those would be helpful for the students and the families that are listening. So anybody who wants to jump first can go.
I'll go just because I finished up. Oswego's timeline is we do have early action. We don't have early decision. Early action is by November 15th deadline for that application. Hearing your decision by December 15th. January 15th is really when we would like everybody to push for. Is it a hard date? Not really, but it's a hard date if that particular major is filled up. We will certainly take applications after that January 15th date, but the danger would be that your particular major might be filled at that point.
I can go next. So for Rutgers, we do have early action and regular decision. Our deadlines are the same every year. So for early action, our application deadline is November 1st. That is the application and then any supporting materials, like if you wanted to send your SAT score, but we are optional. I know we'll probably get into that later. So November 1st is our early action deadline. With that, you are guaranteed a decision by the end of January. Our regular decision deadline is December 1st. And with that, you are guaranteed a decision by the end of February. The real difference between those two is when you'll hear back or when you're guaranteed a decision. Something that's really important with those deadlines is that all students who apply ultimately up to December 1st are automatically considered for our scholarships and honors invitations. So our application doesn't close after December 1st. You can certainly apply on December 2nd. Which is also my birthday, but you just unfortunately will not be considered for all of the good stuff like honors and scholarships. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to those deadlines.
So I'll jump in here right after Alyssa and after Ray, because Penn State is similar to that in that we also offer early action. So for that, we want to make sure that you have your application along with all application supporting material, which in our case is often the SAR, the self-reported academic record, to us by that November 1st deadline. We do fill the spots at our popular programs and our popular campuses, like the University Park campus, with students who apply in that early action applicant pool. Now, after that, we move over into a rolling admissions pool. So you can go ahead and apply to us all year long, and Penn State's application remains open through actually July of your senior year, actually. Just your choices and our spots become more limited. So if we are on your list as one of the schools that you're really interested in, I would encourage you to apply early action. For us, the application is pretty short, straightforward. It's non-binding, so I really see no reason to not be in that early action pool. I always encourage students as really the tip in our application process is really to take advantage of that early action. It really is going to give you that leg up there. Very similar, if you apply by that November 1st, you're guaranteed an admissions decision by December 24th, and you just have it in your back pocket until May 1st, which is the National Candidate Reply Day. You can accept that offer of admission at any point. And then as we move into rolling admission, it's rolling then after that. Typically, if you apply, you would hear back in about 8 weeks or so.
Yeah, I'll jump in next. So at James Madison University, we do have 2 deadlines. We have early action, which is not binding. And the application is due as well as all the supporting materials, which include your test scores. They are optional. Letters of recommendation, which I know we'll probably get in to a little bit later. And also a personal statement, which we do have our own application called the Apply Web, and we also have the Common App. We are on the Common App. The personal statement will be the same prompter, but all those for early action are due by November 1st, and you will get your decision by mid-January. And then we also have regular decision, which is also not binding. That deadline is January 15th, and you'll hear back by the middle of March. We do not have a preference for which you apply for, because we do not have like spots in the colleges that you apply for, because we do not admit by major at JMU. We admit by the university as a whole. So it is up to you. And the benefits, kind of like Alyssa was saying, is that you would hear your decision earlier to then have that knowledge going into the May 1 deadline, which is the universal deposit date for any university. And then also, if you apply early, you do also get evaluated for potential merit scholarships, which we don't have all too many of, but you know, it's one of those things that you automatically get evaluated for. So yeah, awesome.
And at TCNJ, we also have 2 options through which students can apply, but we only offer early decision and general admission. So we do not offer early action. And our early decision deadline is November 1 of your senior year. We turn around all of those decisions by December 1. So before your winter break, you'll know whether or not you've secured a seat in our class, should you decide to apply through ED. Otherwise, our general admission application deadline is February 1 of your senior year. We are not a rolling admission school, so we don't necessarily read applications in the order in which they're received. And unlike what Andrew just shared, we actually do read by major at TCNJ. So we strongly encourage students, especially for our more popular programs, to submit their applications completely as early as possible, meaning supplying your supplemental information soon after submission of the application. Because as those seats fill up, it will be inevitably more competitive to gain access to the remaining seats in that academic program. If you apply general admission, the latest you would hear back from us is April 1. April Fool's Day is our decision deadline date. And then all students have until May 1, the national enrollment deadline date, to decide whether or not they ultimately want to attend the institution. And when it comes to application options, TCNJ utilizes both the common application and the coalition application, and we don't have a preference between the two.
Thank you. I'm going to pose this, and we might not need all the panelists to answer it because it might be similar, but I think a lot of students are wondering and parents are wondering where the SAT scores fall for your school. Are they test optional? And then in that same token, if you're answering the question, when would you suggest that someone submit their SAT scores if you are test optional?
I'll start off this time. We can go in reverse order here. We are test optional for this year's graduating class. We will be announcing in the next few weeks what our test policy will be moving forward. But my understanding is we will remain at least test optional for admission to the institution. What may change for us is merit scholarship eligibility, or at least some of our merit scholarships may require standardized test scores. So for juniors and younger, stay tuned to wait to hear from us. And when it comes to students deciding for themselves whether or not they want to take advantage of the option to supply those scores, my best recommendation would be for a student to really take the time to think about what they feel is the best reflection of their potential for academic success at our institution. If it's the transcript, if you feel like you killed it throughout high school and you challenged yourself in course selection and you earned the grades that are posted on your transcript, but you're concerned that maybe your score is a little bit weaker than you expected it to be, then if I were you, I would opt out of sharing the score, because then we're forced to weight your transcript that much more heavier in our process. However, if there was a blip on your transcript and you had a rough marking period sophomore year and you're concerned how we may interpret that during application review, but you took the test and you were happy with the scores you had received, if I were that student, I would opt to share the score, because then our application weighting is going to be divided among more parts of the application materials, and we'll weigh the transcript and the scores in that sense. All that being said, undoubtedly, if I had to pick which piece of the application carries the most weight, it will always be, for us at least, your transcript.
Yeah, I'll go next if we're going reverse order here. So at JMU, like I said, we are test optional. And for us, kind of different than what Kevin was saying, your test submission makes no difference to your overall decision at JMU. Essentially what it does for us is it lets us see like just essentially how you did. That's the way we look at it. It won't help you get in if your transcript isn't stellar or competitive enough, but it also won't hurt your decision if your transcript is, you know, really great and then you just had a bad SAT day. So it is completely up to you. It won't bear any weight on your decision at all. It might just be, if you think it reinforces your grades, great. If you think it might hurt your grades, great. I mean, it really is just up to you. There's no reason that we ever take those into consideration, unless like we absolutely have to. Like that would be like one of the last things that we look at, to be like, okay, you know, they were on the cusp, and then, you know, it kind of like reinforced what we thought we knew. So really is up to you, and that is for this year as well as the foreseeable future. We have no reason to think that we will go back to being test required, because we do understand that, you know, one test that's 4 hours long on a Saturday morning most times is not indicative of your overall academic success in 4 years.
So Rutgers University is pretty in line with what Kevin said from TCNJ. We are test optional right now until at least the fall of 2024, actually. So the students who are applying to come into the fall of 2024, we have decided we're remaining test optional until then. And then after then, well, I guess we're going to evaluate and we'll let you know. So that would be something that would be posted on our website. But if you do decide to send your scores to us, we will consider them. So similar to what Kevin was saying, that if you kind of didn't do as well as you'd hoped, then maybe don't send it if you think that your transcript is a little bit stronger and reflects who you are as a student a little bit better.
I would just a couple of things. I think we're all saying a lot of the same things. I would just say that when you send your materials, you're all sending them off to the Office of Admissions, not the Office of Rejections. And so I think if we see those test scores, we're all looking for a reason to say that, you know, this student can probably be successful on our campus. And if that essay, at least for us, we go, at least if that SAT score will give that indication, versus a bad freshman year or something like that, kind of ruining your GPA, then that's going to matter to us. I did jump the gun a little bit on our website, and I just found this today that we have stated test optional through fall of 24. And then when I double checked on that, the State University of New York, of which we are a part, determines that, and evidently they really haven't determined that yet. So it's for all 64 campuses that answer. Hopefully I'm not getting anybody fired for putting that on our website, but that's where we are.
So yeah, and for Penn State, it's very similar. The only caveat that I would include here is that we currently call our test optional program a pilot program, and we have extended our pilot program for the next 2 years. So those of you that are juniors and sophomores will also have the ability to apply to us test optional. And the reason for that, the reason we are calling it a pilot program, is that we don't yet have the data to support how students who have applied and been admitted to the university test optional, how they actually perform as students on our campus. So we are studying that data right now, and we'll need another class or two of students so we can get the full picture there, I think, before we make that decision for the future. But for those of you that are juniors, just know that we are test optional. And I agree that if you are a great test taker and you think your test scores accurately reflect your abilities as a student, please go ahead and send them to us. We will use them in the application review. But if you do not send your test scores, you are not penalized in any way in the admissions process.
Thank you, everybody. And just so Stacy has a heads up, I'm going to start with Stacy for this one. So we're going to talk a little bit about financial aid. Maybe you want to share what it looks like at your school, how students could qualify for some financial aid. So I'll let Stacy kick it off, and then anybody else, when it goes along, can jump right in.
Sure. So as the State University of Pennsylvania, in order to be considered for maximum student aid for us, you do need to have a FAFSA form on file, the free application for federal student aid. That is the one and only form that you need to have on file. And even if you don't think that you are financially needy, we would still encourage you to fill out that form, because it really is the key that unlocks all types of money, free money, and money from our university. In terms of student aid, you could be looking for scholarships, which is great, free money that you don't have to pay back. Grants, same, but usually there's some type of a stipulation with a program, and perhaps as the State University of Pennsylvania, many out-of-state students might not be able to take advantage of that grant funding. Typically, you're going to find that if you fill out the FAFSA form in the state in which you live, you'll be eligible for more grant type funding. But we also offer scholarships that are merit-based. We offer scholarships that are need-based. We offer scholarships that are a combination of need and merit-based scholarships. So that's why it's so important to have that FAFSA form on file. I would also encourage you to fill out out that form in a timely manner, because financial aid is sort of like a funnel. The most is available at the beginning for us. So I would encourage you to get that form on file sooner rather than later. And I would also say, as an out-of-state school, you certainly are making a choice to attend an out-of-state institution. I would say there are ways to make that education more affordable to you. So for example, our University Park campus, which is the most popular campus of Penn State, also has the highest tuition, right? So we do have, the Commonwealth campuses are within the Penn State University, and no matter which campus you start at, no matter which campus you finish at, your degree says the Pennsylvania State University. You could really take advantage of tremendous cost savings by attending one of our smaller Commonwealth campuses where tuition is significantly lower. So if you are looking to get like the great quality education we believe that you can get at Penn State University for an affordable choice, I would encourage you to explore some things like that. And that is like a great way to consider student aid and all the money that you could possibly get and the sources of money. At a large school like Penn State would be considering some of those options like the Commonwealth campuses, because while those campuses are smaller, they also have less students on those campuses competing for sometimes larger pools of money. So it's just something to think about there.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo in, and I'm sure all of us are going to say, that definitely fill out the FAFSA, because it's the one and only thing you need in order to guarantee yourself potential money, free money. But for us, I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, merit scholarship, we do have a little bit that we get to be able to give. And I mean, we as in the university, not we as the Office of Admissions per se. But at the end of early action, only about 5% of our students will receive some form of merit scholarship. So it is a little bit on the low side. And that is something that we're working on. However, like Stacy was saying, we also do have a scholarship hub where we house all of our scholarships that we do offer, some being need-based, some being based off of the major, some being, a prerequisite to being admitted to the honors college. So there are different eligibility requirements there. However, we do understand that we don't offer too much. So we do highly suggest and think that you should reach out to your counselors at your high schools for any independent and external scholarships as well, because even though they might require an additional, application form, any money is good money, especially when, like Stacey was saying, you're going out of state and you're paying the out of state tuition rate. So definitely, for sure.
Yes, for Rutgers, FAFSA, 65% of our students receive some form of aid. So the FAFSA, I think the deadline is December 1st. So for any need-based aid, you will want to definitely submit that. And then submitting your application by December 1st will put you in the running for any of the academic merit scholarships. But in terms of need-based financial aid, that will all come from the FAFSA.
And at TCNJ, much like my colleagues have already shared, any need-based aid is based entirely on submission of the FAFSA, which our Student Financial Assistance Office will package students with an estimate, which releases each year, usually in mid-March. All students who submitted their FAFSA and were admitted to TCNJ will get a response back from our Student Financial Aid Office, letting you know what, if any, need-based grants or loans or awards you've qualified for. On the merit scholarship side, we review students at the time of application review. If a student is found admissible to TCNJ, then the counselor reviewing that application will determine at that time if that student also qualifies for one of our merit scholarship awards. Historically, just under half of our accepted students qualify for a merit scholarship, but you'll know in your letter of admission if you qualified for one of those scholarships.
So I'll just echo the importance of the FAFSA for any of that need-based money. And with the federal money, you can carry that to any campus. So SUNY Oswego being out of state, all of that is tied into the federal money. I can't, to be honest with you, I can't talk too much about merit-based scholarships or scholarships for out-of-state students. For the past, well, when my son went in 2013, right up through last year, we had a housing scholarship. So students did not have to pay for their housing, which was about $9,000 a year. And that was great. This year, we stopped that, and we're doing a scholarship match with our flagship university, Rutgers. So out-of-state students pay Rutgers tuition at Oswego, and we will have a new director of admissions coming in, and so they've asked us not to talk about how we're going to set up any of those scholarships for out-of-state students. But I would encourage you to make sure that you check that next fall, because we always do have something additional for out-of-state students. And actually, if you get your package with, at least with Oswego, I know when my son went to Oswego, he had a much higher ACT score than SAT score, which put him into a little bit different scholarship pile. And so we'll take either one of those tests. So that's kind of a backdoor way of saying when we're talking about test optional, doesn't necessarily just mean the SAT.
Thank you all. I'm actually going to put a little plug in for us. For those from Newton High School that are listening, in the end of October, we have a wonderful presenter that comes and speaks entirely all about financial aid, the different types of financial aid, how to fill out the FAFSA. And for our junior families that are going to be seniors next year, Sussex County Community College actually sends their financial aid office over and will sit down and do your FAFSA with you, so that you can have someone that's an expert sit next to you and go through step-by-step completing the FAFSA to make sure that you get it all right. And you'll walk out the door that night and it'll be complete. So if you are a junior family, that is something to look for in November. We have a FAFSA night so that you can get that done. And I heard a couple of our schools talk about trying to get that done sooner rather than later. So that would give you a great opportunity to have that all said and done and have an expert sits next to you, because sometimes it can get a little bit frustrating. I am actually going to ask our panelists kind of one more question, I think, and then I'll open it up for questions from the audience, because we do get a lot of really good ones. My last question for our panelists is going to be, really, what are you looking for in an applicant? Like for you, what would be something that you're looking for? Is it specifically grades? Our students be looking at their essay? Is it a combination of everything? Is it involvement in activities? Is it that they already knew they wanted to be a biologist since they were 7 and that's their driving factor in going into biology? But kind of as an admissions counselor or as a representative, what are you looking for? I know there's not one defining thing, but maybe something that's on your mind. I'm actually going to let Andrew start first, because I don't think he started yet. So I'm going to let him go first.
All right. So yeah, so at JMU, I kind of already mentioned this. We don't really take into account things like tests, scores, but also we don't necessarily rely on letters of recommendation or your personal statement in terms of how that sways your decision. It might help us understand you better, and that's the main point of them. So for example, if your guidance counselor says that you went through, a loss of a family member, or, the school had to shut down in the middle of March because of a power outage, those are things that help us understand why grades might be the way that they are. Same thing with your personal statement. If you have, diagnoses or learning disabilities and things like that, that will help us understand maybe why you didn't take this, or maybe the opportunity wasn't there. That helps us understand why your transcript might look the way it is. But what we look for primarily is at your transcript. We want to see that within the 4 years that you're at Newton High School, that you're taking advantage of the rigor courses that they have. So at Newton High School, I can attest to this. There's a vast abundance of APs and honors that are offered, as well as some dual enrollment classes that are offered. So we want to see that you're starting in your 9th grade year with some honors classes and working your way and being consistent and, growing with those programs as well. And then we also want to see that you're primarily getting A's and B's in those classes. So not only do we want to see that you're taking advantage of those courses, but we want to see that you're doing well. You know, an applicant who takes all this program but then has C's isn't going to be, you know, seen as strongly as someone who's taking college prep and getting A pluses, just because they have the program there. So we really, really heavily rely on that. We want to see 4 years of everything in the core academic areas, as I'm sure my colleagues can attest to. That includes English, social studies, social sciences, lab science, mathematics, and foreign language. For out of state, for JMU, we are a little bit more lenient. So 2 years minimum foreign language. We really like to see a third, but of the same language as well. We want to see that it's consistent, because we want to see that intermediate to, you know, expert level of understanding of the language as well. And then we also, you know, we let you put a list of activities, but again, they're more to show your character and help me paint a picture of who you are versus, oh, they're a Boy Scout, an Eagle Scout. They are a better human and a better applicant than someone who was just on the club Frisbee team. So really, really looking at that transcript above anything else, but anything that you think will definitely help, not only will we look at it, but you know, it might be a reason why things are viewed a little bit differently.
I could probably echo everything Andrew just said, but I'll just focus on just two things that I think especially stand out for a highly qualified applicant. And one would just be the basic knowledge that you're providing evidence that you're preparing yourself for college level work. And in our opinion, there's no better way to do that than to increase the course rigor each subsequent year of high school as you prepare yourself to enter your undergraduate student experience. And I say that because some students get the impression that they should maybe let their foot off the gas pedal senior year. But at least from our perspective, that's not effective and not going to best position you to do well as you transition to college level work. And the second that may be unique to each of our institutions, because I know this is not necessarily the case for every college or university, but at TCNJ, demonstrated interest has become increasingly important to our review process. So we do track that, we do value it. It's probably a frequent buzz term you've heard from many other institutions, whether they do track it or they do not, whether they weight it or they do not. But at TCNJ, we certainly do. So we really want to see evidence in the application that you have an awareness of what TCNJ has to offer and that you're confident that you would be a good fit and be a good community member on our campus.
I can jump in and echo what everyone has said. For folks interested in TCNJ, I got in, so there you go. I graduated a year or two before Kevin, maybe 3 or 4 years before Kevin. But I would like to just emphasize that certainly it is that transcript, and that what we're trying to decide again is who will be successful on campus. If you look at the statistics in New Jersey, about 40%, maybe 40 to 45% of folks are going through life with a bachelor's degree in our state. School people work with, students work with all folks who have those kinds of degrees, but in the real world, only 40-something% have those. And when we all list our college going statistics, we're up in that 80% sort of range or more. And so what happens to the 80% who went off to college and the only sort of 40% who end up with those degrees? Maybe they weren't as prepared as they should have been. And I remember when I was a counselor, a lot of students would say, well, what looks good? And that's not a game you want to play. It really is what is good versus what looks good, because what is good is that good, solid college prep or better series of courses and you doing well. That's the best predictor for success on our campuses. And even better, with regard to activities and that going back to that what looks good sort of thought, I like to see students who do well but have also been involved with other things, because if you're not involved with those clubs and activities, or a part-time job, or watching your brothers and sisters or something, then all you're doing is showing up in school and going home, and you ought to have good grades. So that's my thought.
Ray, I really love what you said about, getting the question a lot about what looks good, because I think that there's kind of like this idea, everyone's trying to hack the system. Like, how am I going to get in here? What looks good? What do I got to put down? But I truly believe that if you, work hard, you put your best foot forward, you're going to end up exactly where you need to be. And maybe that's not all the time where you thought you wanted to be, or you thought you were going to go, but you'll end up exactly where you're supposed to be, and you're going to have a great experience, hopefully. And if not, there's always a transfer process, which we could talk about next time. But for Rutgers, also echoing what everyone has already said, trying to set students up for success at Rutgers, we're looking at your academics first and foremost. And then also for a lot of students where, maybe you weren't the top of the class, but you also weren't the bottom of the class. We do go into looking at, what you were into outside of the classroom, any of those extracurriculars, your essay, any extenuating circumstances that have maybe come up for you during high school. Not saying you have to join a bunch of clubs. Maybe you worked a job. Anything like that can really set a student apart from another student who maybe has the same academic profile but wasn't involved in anything. So we do look at it all, but academics definitely comes first and foremost. And also, like Ray said, he's like giving some good tips here. We're the Office of Admissions. We're trying to look for reasons to admit a student, and with also the idea that you're going to succeed on our campus. So we're not going to admit a student who we think maybe won't do so well, because that's not setting you up for success. So taking one last note is a student who, like Kevin said, is challenging themselves throughout the years, but also taking the highest level course they can do well in. So not overloading yourself and then maybe, kind of getting burnt out in that way. So yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah, pulling anchor on this one, I could say ditto to just about everything everybody else said. Alyssa, Ray, Andrew, Kevin, all hit the major points here. The only other thing that I would add, just sort of as like an end cap here in terms of what you could do to be an ideal applicant outside of the sort of academic world, I would say there are some things that you have the ability to control in the application process. Things like the date in which you apply by, getting all your materials in on time. And I know that those things sound like, I can't believe she's telling us that, but you would not believe the amount of people who don't, or like the fact that, I'm going to put this in perspective for you. We get like something close to 120,000 applications. Like we have like 10,000 applications. That's like a lot of applications that are not completed. And those applications that are not completed, it could be something so simple as someone just didn't follow through and hit the submit button at the very last stage. And you could just be sitting there in this status, and we're like emailing you, and I understand that students don't check their email. I get that. And then we're texting you, and then we're calling you. But, I think that making sure that you own the process and that you follow the directions, and each of our schools has a little bit different directions, right? So you really need to do your research and follow each direction for each school. And I think that's one of the biggest things you can do to give yourself a leg up in the process.
All really, really good pieces of advice. I am so glad that we're recording this because this is awesome. I want to be respectful of our panelists' time and our community's time. We have about 5 or so minutes. I'm just going to open up in the chat. If the audience members, if you have a question that you've been thinking about that you would like our panelists to answer, please message me in the chat and I'll ask it. And for time's sake, I'm just going to pick one panelist to answer it. We do have a lot of ideas here that I want to see if we have somebody who might have a question. If I get no questions, I will ask the panelist one question and then we'll call it a night. But just got the chat open. If you have something in your head that you've been thinking about, or you really want to know something, you know, you're getting it directly from the source. So you can't get a better answer than what we have tonight. I have no Jeopardy theme music to play while we wait for this. Oh, perfect. We have a great question. So this is something that oftentimes families will ask based on GPAs or total scores. So they're asking about, when you get transcripts from other schools, do you recalculate GPAs? So I'm going to actually pose this one to Kevin because he answered this question actually for us last year. And he gave a really great answer. So the question is, you know, if you're getting transcripts from all these different schools and they have all these different grading scales, do you recalculate GPAs? Like, how does that look?
At TCNJ, actually, we do not recalculate GPAs for our applicant pool, but that is going to differ from one institution to the next. So by all means, connect with the schools that you're considering. For us, we review all students contextually based on the individual high school that they're coming from. That's, I'm sure, in large part because our applicant pool is not what Rutgers and Penn State are dealing with. We're dealing with an applicant pool that hovers between 10 and 13,000 students, looking to bring in about 1,500 students. But in doing so, we rely very, very heavily on the school profile, which will be provided by your school counseling office. And that gives us contextual data as the kind of curriculum that's available to you. And we can use that to then compare it to your transcript to see, based on what was available to you, what have you opted to pursue. So we don't compare an individual graduate from one high school to an individual graduate from another high school, because those two students may not have had access to the same kinds of courses. And we really want to compare you to your same peers from your same school who had access to that same curriculum.
Awesome, thank you. I saw a lot of head shaking at that time, so I feel like we're on the same page here. I'm going to give one little plug because the question is about scholarships. So they're talking about Newton scholarships. So we actually, and this won't affect the panelists, but at Newton High School, we have a rather robust local scholarship program that we have every year. And that information will come out either through Naviance. That's the best way to find all of our local scholarships. Plus, Mrs. Howe, one of our guidance counselors, will be sending multiple emails when you reach senior year. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we gave out almost $250,000 last year at our local scholarships award ceremony. So please, that is a great way to find scholarship money. One of the other questions was something that we answered before, asking about SAT and ACT. Right now, all the panelists have answered that at this moment in time, they are still test optional. We are recording this, so we will share this presentation. So it'll be an opportunity to go back, and our panelists gave more in-depth answer. But that kind of looks like the end of our questions, which actually coincides with a great time because we're trying to close up by 7. So just from our school and our community, I just would like to thank the panelists for their time. I know that there's so many things that they have going on now, and it's probably the heart of the admissions season. So it's probably a busy time for them, but I could not tell you how much we really appreciate your time talking to our students in our community. And we just loved having you. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you to our community who is here. Thank you to all my participants that sent me chat messages and to ask our panelists. And I just appreciate everybody's time tonight. Thank you, guys.
And thank you, Jessica, for putting all this together.
It was my pleasure.
Good night, folks.
Good night, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
You know,